when it comes to intervention, why can we not just keep intervening?
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is obviously one answer, that naturally our ability to intervene over time is being less and less impactful.
Right.
But the reality is that when we actually take a step back and look at intervention, for me personally, I wanted to figure out, why does intervention not work?
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the things I kind of laid out in the book is I tried to break down intervention into actually a stage process as to how intervention leads to kind of decay of society.
Mm-hmm.
And so I broke it down into 4 steps. And these 4 steps, and the first one is we have a misalignment to reality.
Mm-hmm.
And Jeff Booth talks about this phenomenally,
Mm-hmm.
which is the fact that the world at which we live in, humans, since the dawn of time, we've always been trying to adapt, trying to increase our productivity, trying to increase our efficiency.
Yeah.
That's just human nature.
The purpose of the economy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're always trying to increase our tools to be able to generate more, to be able to support our families, support those around us. And so as time has gone by, technology has advanced.
Mm-hmm.
The analogy I like to give is kind of the Netflix versus Blockbuster.
Mm-hmm.
You used to, with Blockbuster, spend 10 minutes driving down to Blockbuster, walk into Blockbuster, spend 30 minutes deciding on which movie you want to take. You then spend your $7-8 renting the movie. You then drive home. You watch the movie. You got to drive back, drop the movie.
Don't
back
forget to rewind it.
Don't forget to rewind it. Yeah. Or if you got the CD, you've now scratched the CD.
Yeah.
And then you drive back. You drop it back off again. Like, all of that time and energy to rent one movie.
Yeah.
And now for nearly the same cost as a month subscription of Netflix. Well, sorry, the same cost as one rental movie, you're getting a month subscription of Netflix, which is profound. Like, that efficiency, our ability to be able to watch movies has increased exponentially.
Yes.
And this is in every single aspect of society, from 100 years ago harvesting apples to harvesting apples today.
Right.
Harvest 10 times the amount with the amount of energy expenditure. And so the problem is, when we have a society where we are printing more and prices are rising, well, we have a misalignment to reality.
Yes.
Prices
because in that world, prices are declining, right? As productivity goes up, it's equivalent to saying prices come down.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. As prices should be coming down, and we've got a world where prices are rising, well, we have a misalignment to reality. We live in a debt-based inflationary world, which doesn't align with this world where we're trying to increase productivity and efficiency.
That's right.
And so if you've got all of these corporations that are taking on debt, and they have a huge amount of debt, and all of a sudden prices were to start falling, and then their profit margins were starting to get squeezed, well, society would start breaking down.
Yes.
So what ends up happening? What leads us to the next stage, which is the death of creative destruction.
Yeah.
And that is where, when you break down creative destruction or competition, you have a whole host of byproducts. And why does that happen? Well, if these corporations have taken on a bunch of debt, are starting to struggle, but they're a fundamental part of society because we've kind of pumped capital into them, we've supported them through subsidies and bailouts, and now they're a fundamental pillar of society. We cannot let them fail. If all of a sudden we're pumping capital into these companies in order to be able to force them to survive, then that breaks down competition.
Yes.
You're not allowing the free market to compete. You're not allowing value to rise up. You're actually supporting fiscal irresponsibility.
Yeah.
You're supporting unproductive companies. And so this breakdown in competition, or then you end up with a very unproductive society where capital is flowing towards businesses that should not exist.
Exactly. To the point of them being zombie companies, right? Where they actually produce no good for society anymore, but they're kept on life support through monetary intervention, which is basically theft, right? Like, you're stealing from those that are productive to support these companies that are non-productive. And if that's not a perversion of incentives, then I don't know what is.
No, I couldn't agree more. And when you start diving into this, you then start realizing, okay, well, we've got this misalignment to reality, and now we're impeding competition. So the next stage is that, well, now we have cash flow distortion, which is going back to our analogy of money as a medium of expression. If we want to be able to express ourselves and direct our capital where we see fit, where value is being created in society, well, when you're having a bunch of corporations survive that should not exist, all of a sudden capital is flowing towards areas of the economy that it naturally would not flow to.
Right.
So we see capital flowing towards businesses that are proving fiscal irresponsibility. They should not exist. 2008 should have wiped out a large portion of businesses because they were incredibly fiscally irresponsible. They went into a economic crisis with very little cash position on their balance sheet to be able to support themselves. They were not thinking ahead. They were relying on stimulus. They were relying on subsidies and bailouts. And so naturally, capital starts flooding towards areas of the economy that maybe would not see that capital in a free market. And then that leads us to the final stage, which is decision-making impairment. How, as individuals, And although obviously I don't agree with central planners, but we have central planners. So how, as central planners and individuals, can we make effective decisions if we don't know who is offering value, who's not offering value, which companies should survive, which companies shouldn't survive? We have no understanding about the actual functionality of our society and how it should be naturally functioning. And the analogy that I like to think about is, in a relationship is about communication. If you don't know what your partner's needs are and they don't know what yours are, how can you expect that relationship to survive? And that's the reality that we have with our economy. We don't know anything about our economy because we're constantly intervening, which is masking our ability to read our economy.
Yes. No, that's wonderfully said. Again, back to prices revealing the actual preferences of consumers. If those preferences are being distorted through monetary intervention, then we don't know what people actually want. And this is actually how the Austrians define the misallocation of capital, is that there's a certain configuration of preferences in the world. There's what people want to exist, and the people that have the wherewithal to pay for the things that they want to exist, there's a certain configuration of that. If capital is not allocated in accordance with those wishes, then it's being misallocated by definition, right? There's someone that's coercively causing capital to flow to plans and projects that otherwise would not flow to absent the coercion. So you're talking about interrupting that economic democratic process of buying and selling, leading to the creation of goods and capital in the world. It no longer, what we see actually manifest physically in the world is no longer a product of supply and demand. It becomes a product of government policy. And this is the problem, right? We are rewarding the coercion and the intervention, right? The people are being paid for non-productive, coercive activity. And when you reward coercion, don't be surprised when you get a world characterized by coercion rather than cooperation. And all of this is rooted in the corruption of the money.
100%.